Evcol. PAing by Emma Dawson.
One of the most frustrating things about PAing, Saffron, is that you will deal with people who are extremely stupid on a daily basis. But they will assume at all times that they're at least 10 times smarter than you'll ever be. And you'll go along with it. Now, I suppose it could be a reasonable assumption, because the most important thing that I ever get to handle is rewording an email that my boss dictated so that it's slightly less offensive. That said, I work for people who are too dumb to find the stationery cupboard, even though it's never moved. I work for people who have not yet figured out how that mysterious and elusive creature, the computer, works. I work for people who can't follow the simplest instructions, helpfully bullet-pointed in an email. No, I forgot. That's my job. I'm young and female, like many PAs, badly paid, like some. I'm constantly assumed to be not busy. And it's my job to remember every single thing that ever happened in this godforsaken department, like 20 years ago, when I was 8. I work for high flyers who believe that the way they view the world is the only correct way. I want to knock some sense into them on a daily basis. The restraint this job has taught me. God, the rage I've had to contain. I'm failing to contain it. You may have noticed, you might have just seen that sometimes my job makes me tremble with fury, and other times, well, I just feel endless despair. I try all the time to deny reality. I want to, but somehow it just doesn't click. Like, make a positive out of this, I dare you. I just had Lynette over at my desk asking me to give her a personal tutorial again on how to put her out of office on. And so I said to her, Lynette, we've been over this a few times. And she said, it's not my fault that it's impossible. And I said, I'm really busy. Can we do this later? Which we all know is code for, I'm not your PA, fuck off where you came from. And she said, no, I need to do this now. And I said, I'm on a deadline for Enrique, Lynette. And she said, this is for Enrique, so he knows that I'm off on Thursday. Just show me. And then I've run out of grace to Alexis, so I've got a choice. Get ugly or go along with it. And as fucking usual, I chose to smile, and I showed the dumb bitch through gritted teeth, and then she mentioned to Enrique that I'd been on cooperative. And I said to Enrique, we talked about how I couldn't be responsible for the technological needs of the entire team and also look after you properly, didn't we? That's what IT's for. And I've shown Lynette several times, Enrique, is this a good use of my time? And I forgot that you can't say anything reasonable like that to Enrique, because he just looked at me reproachfully and said, some people find technology hard, Eva. We didn't all have the privilege of growing up in a world where computers were the norm, so why can't you just help Lynette out without this drama? And I, very unwisely at this stage, because he'd pissed me off too many times recently with his utter lack of empathy, said, A, it's not my job. I'm not her assistant. And B, I get into trouble all the time for being less than perfect, for not remembering everything, for not being able to fix every single piece of technology in this office. But Lynette, she doesn't even have to make this minuscule amount of effort, even though she should have been using the out-of-office function on a regular basis for at least 15 years, and I've given this demonstration 6 times before. Is that the situation? I have to grow and improve and be responsible for myself, but Lynette just doesn't have to bother. And he said, this is all out of proportion, and went off to his meeting. I'm going to have to kill him. My mentor says that I should get used to people being dicks with the technology, but somehow each time I'm incandescent. Let me explain something else to you. There are 2 types of PAs. There's the type that's in it for life, and they tend towards saying things like, if your boss is so awful, then why don't you quit? And I don't really see what the big deal's about. It doesn't annoy me. And then there's the ambitious type, often youngish, someone who's trying to make a career in that field, or a related field, or even a really, really unrelated field. Beware of these PAs. Most of them tried to get better jobs than being a diary monkey, but they found that they couldn't kick the door open and accepted their fate. They know that not every PA makes the jump from admin to something else. They can't bear the thought of it all not paying off, of moving meetings, doing expenses, and forcing their bosses to do things for the rest of their working lives. They discover that all the intellectual stimulation in the world during your lunch break, commutes, evenings, weekends, and holidays can't compensate for 7+ hours of boredom 5 days a week. You know, people sometimes say what a vital part of the company PAs are to make you feel better. And it always makes me laugh so much because, yes, it's true. Particularly when your boss can barely function as a human being but somehow got a high-powered job. You know the one, Saffron? You look at them with pity, wondering how they function in their private lives when you're not there. But the reason it makes me laugh is because you don't feel vital in the slightest. Yes, your boss's shit wouldn't get done without you, but they're not grateful. The company isn't either. Your genius becomes his genius, and you stay in your little box thinking, fuck you, boss, fuck you, company. I'd laugh my ass right off if you got fired, or if the company failed, or I wouldn't feel anything. And I wouldn't want them to suffer. No. I always wished they would vanish. Instantly. Now that we've settled the differences between the two PAs, let's explore what happens when your boss is treating you like shit. It's been 6 months to a year, and you suddenly realise that nothing's ever going to change, and you go to HR. My boss just acts irritated with me all the time. Everything annoys him, and I don't feel like I can do anything right. He also makes degrading comments about me and women in general. Can you give me an example? He told me that I should be a hairdresser. I think he was implying that both I and all hairdressers are stupid. He keeps shouting at me that it's easy for a person with any intelligence to understand when I ask him clarifying questions. Actually, generally getting information out of him about what he wants is like ridiculously tough. I'm only trying to get it right. He has a habit of not giving me any details and then complaining about how I did it later. And whenever I get under the table to turn the e-box on... The what? It's the technology that you use to turn on the screens in the meeting rooms. Oh. So, whenever I get down under the table, he says things like, I can't keep her off her knees. She's not normally so servile. Now listen, Saffron. They'll either say, maybe he didn't mean it like that, or that's just not good enough. Do you want me to have a word with him? And of course you do, but you have the future to consider. How will he treat you after he's been told off like that? Is your life going to be worth living? And what about the career-boosting favours he might have done you? They'll go out the window like that. And why else were you putting up with it if not for that? And if you complain to your colleagues, they might say things like, well, he's under a lot of stress. But when you're under a lot of stress, which is all the time, you're never supposed to let it show. Instead, you must be perpetually charming and breezy, even if your boss has just screamed at you. They think we're just wafting cheerily through our low-level lives. And somehow, just somehow, they're not accountable for their actions. After a while, you get the feeling that they'd have to really cross the line to face any consequences, like punching you with an audience of 10 that they couldn't bribe. Or something like that. Of course, the way I shut up people who respond incredulously to my decision to stay miserably put is to list the first reason of many why I can't just immediately quit. I need to pay my rent. The people who suggest that I have choices are technically correct. I could indeed bow out of this career track and get a job that wasn't going anywhere that I'd like to go. But what would be the point? Since I'd soon wind up trying to advance down my desired route again, and I would have lost ground in the meantime, and God, it took me long enough to get in the first place. So it seems best to stick it out for now. Anyway, less about me, more about you. Welcome to PAing. How's your first day going?
This was an Evcol Entertainment Clockwork Digital Studios original production, a part of the On Another Wavelength audio anthology series, featuring the voice talent of Holly Gillanders. Written by Emma Dawson, directed and produced by Simon James Collier, series created and co-produced by Dechanel, soundscape design Zachary Elliott-Hatton.